Okay. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is dispatch boards and setting up your view profiles and really setting up the dispatch screen that's going to help you get the most out of what your particular job function is. Now, this is a test CFM6 system here, and what I've done is I've made a dispatch screen for myself called Peter Deliveries. And for it, I've chosen any of the columns that I want to be available for processing out my deliveries. You can do this for a company-wide setting, so you can make your company dispatch boards here, or individual users can also set them up. So if I want to create or modify my Peter Deliveries board, what you would do is just go to File, Preferences, and then View Profiles. All of your users can do this. And then they can click on the New button here, and then they can select which columns they want to show on their dispatch board. So the idea is you can make an inbound board, an outbound board. You can make an inbound board, an outbound board. You can make one for airport recoveries, and you can make one maybe just for residentials, and you can set these up however you want and then switch between them. So here I've chosen some delivery-specific information to put on my delivery board. And when I go to this board, I'll see only that info. So I could make a pickup board and then have my delivery board and switch between the two. Now on these dispatch boards, you can move around your columns, you can group, you can sort. So if I wanted to sort out by, let's say, continent city, I can drag that into my little group bar here. And now I'm sorting out and grouping out by that data. You can also filter down. So let's say that I wanted to make a board and only have data for my C.H. Robinson customer. If I hover over my icon or my column header here, you'll see this little filter pop up. If I can click on that, I can say, show me only my C.H. Robinson. Then I can switch between my different boards, and that data is going to retain. So those settings are going to retain. Now, what you want to note here is that you can have multiple versions or multiple instances of Crown running on a single computer, and then as long as it's the same user logged in, it's only going to use one license. So what I've seen in the past before is you have your dispatchers or you have your ops people with multiple monitors, and they'll have one instance of Crown open with, let's say, their outbound board, and then they'll have another instance of Crown open on another monitor, and they'll have their pickups on that board. I'm sorry, their deliveries on that board. They'll have different instances of Crown open, and they'll be able to process off the same ones. And they're all connected to the same database, so you can do that, updating all of the shipments, and just get a very good visual for all the data that you're processing there. And that will only use one license. So as long as it's the same user and the same computer, you can have Crown opened up multiple times there. So these dispatch screens, we like to say that everyone should have their own personal one. You probably want to have some company-wide ones as well. But if you have a dispatcher, if you have an ops person who's having trouble finding the jobs or sorting through the data on those big generic dispatch boards like this, what you want to show them is how to go to the File, Preferences, and then View Profiles, and then set up their board here. All right. One of the items that I like to keep on the dispatch screen is, and I don't think I have it on here yet, so I'll show you how to pop it in, is the dispatch message. So if I go to Preferences and then View Profiles, and I go to Edit My Deliveries here, should have the ability to put in dispatch message.
Right there. 5 up.
If I drag that on here and then save it and exit and refresh my grid, you'll see that it's right here. So the idea is that if I'm in a shipment and I have something that I want to show on my dispatch screen, like let's say an accessorial charge or something in there, what I can do is I can go to my logistics tab and I can just pop it into dispatch message here. So I'll say liftgate and save it, and then that's going to show in this column. So you can filter down and put in So if you had 10 or 15 shipments that you put a very specific message in there or specific wording, you can show that on your dispatch grid, and then you can even filter down, show only those shipments that contain that. So there's a lot that you can do with the boards and the different setups, and the better your operations people understand this, the faster they're going to be in processing. The other thing that you want to utilize is color profiles. So color profiles fall under the same principle as dispatch boards, where you can have company-based color profiles and individual users can have their own color profiles as well. So if I go back to the File and then Preferences, and I say Color Schemes, I can make a new profile. It's called Peter, with a P, and then I can choose color coding for my shipments. So I can say my pickups are always going to be a blue color. My deliveries are always going to be orange. But more importantly, what you can do is you can say that if a delivery is within 30 minutes of the close time, it highlights in yellow for you. And then if it gets to 15 minutes of that deadline, it's going to highlight in red. So you can set rules based on the deadlines and appointments for your shipments and have them highlight in certain colors for you, so you're able to see when something is getting close to its close, and you can dispatch that out. You can also say that specials are always lit up in red. Hazmats are always lit up in yellow. And you can use this in order to make your dispatch board more readable and have things call your attention when you need to address them. So your color schemes would then populate in here. We do recommend that you have a company default color scheme. It's one of those things where individual users can have their own color schemes, but we find that company color schemes work the best because then you can walk around and look at any user's computer and you can just know as you're going through that operations room, you can say, okay, there's a special, hey, there's something that's getting close to its close time. So usually a universal color scheme works the best, but they work the same as view profiles. Individual users can have their own. All right. So the next thing that we want to jump into here is the way that you handle your airport recoveries. So there are two different ways that you can do it. This question comes up quite a bit. The one thing that you can do is, if I take a look at one of my deliveries here, I have the routing entered in. We're surprised at how many companies we find that aren't using this field, and it is a very important one. So as long as you put in ETA in here, and then you have the routing in here, that's going to tell you from which carrier you have to recover this freight. I also like to have it on my board. So I can filter down my board, as we talked about earlier here, where I can say, show me only stuff that I'm recovering from Forward Air, or only Delta. I can filter that down, or I can even group it on my screen here. So I can say, here's all the stuff that I have to recover from these different airlines. So as long as you have the routing and the ETA entered in, these two fields right here, then you can run an airport sweep report to show you everything that you need to recover at the airline. To do that, you go to your normal reports here. So just click on my printer icon, and then you have airport sweep. And we're going to choose inbound freight here. And let's say, show me everything for Forward Air. It's going to take a look at the ETA date and say, here's everything that's available today at Forward Air. Send your driver out to recover the freight. Now, the advantage to using the airport sweep and the routing field is you're going to have a nice, clean dispatch board. You can have only your deliveries on here, and your recoveries are going to be available from running that report. Now, we do have some customers who prefer to have a pickup on all their deliveries. So they want to see that recovery as an actual pickup line. Now, you can do that by opening each job here, or when you set up each shipment, if you go to logistics and then say add a pickup, now this job is going to have both a pickup and a delivery portion. So I can just say that my shipper is going to be Forward Air, and this is going to be a non-rated pickup. It's just going to be logistical for the recovery. And I'll just pop in a ready and close just to get on the screen here. And now you're going to see that pickup line here. So here's another scenario where if I wanted to designate and show which line is a delivery, which line is a pickup, I can add that to my view profile, or I could just go to the generic dispatch board, but let's just add it to mine real quick. Oops. And I'm going to add my PD here. And that's going to designate the 2 lines for me. We go back in. Now I have my types. Okay. So now you can see here's my airport recovery, and there's my delivery. So if I'm grouping out by type, I can say here are all my pickups, and there are all my deliveries. It's personal preference. If you guys want to have all of your recoveries as lines on your dispatch screen here, you can do that, or you can use the airport sweep and just run it off of a report. If I recover that, that's going to drop off, and then I'm going to have my delivery portion. So the advantage to using logistical pickups for your airport recoveries would be that you can also manifest them. So we're going to get into manual manifesting soon here, but the idea is that you can actually manifest and send them out to the driver's phone and tell them, here's all the stuff that you're going to be recovering. If you're using an airport sweep, it's mostly just a report. So to recap on that, you have your 2 options. When you're doing your deliveries, if you choose routing and then ETA, you can run the inbound airport sweep report to show everything you're going to be recovering for the airport from the airline. Now on outbound stuff, let's get a pickup in here real quick. You would also use routing. That's going to trigger on your outbound sweep report, and you can use this drop by field here. So the latest time that you have to get it to the carrier, you put in drop by here. As long as you have routing and drop by, it's going to show on your outbound sweep. The other option, of course, is to, when you have a pickup, you can have the option in here to add a transfer. So you'd have your pickup that you're recovering locally here, and your transfer is going to hang out on the dispatch board until you take it over to the airline until you drop it at the carrier. So you can either use sweeps for this, or you can use these logistical items here. Now you can also, as many of you know, you can also rate those transfers as well. So you can have the pickup and the transfer rating separately and as separate items on your board. Now that's going to take us real quick into service levels. We're not going to go very deep into this. That's going to be more on a rating and setting up tariff webinar. But let me just show you real quick. If we go to my system setup and then service levels here. If I wanted to set this up, so I don't want to use airport sweeps and routing on this, I'd rather just have each one of my recoveries as a pickup. What I can do is I can select my delivery service level, and I just hit Add Pickup. If I save this, every time I enter in a delivery, it's going to have my rated delivery, and it's going to add a logistical pickup for me. So you don't have to go into every job and say Add Pickup. You can just set it on your service level to do that. Same thing applies for if I have a pickup that I want to put transfers on. I can say Pickup, and then just say Add a transfer to it. Now, if I want pickup plus transfer service level, which we have in here, I can say add a pickup, rate it with my normal air freight rate, and then add a transfer and rate that with my airport transfer rate. So you can set up whatever you want as far as service levels. One other quick thing with service levels is that you can use these to set up templates for your shipments. So if you're putting in your delivery here, and you have your users going in, putting in the delivery, then double-clicking on this charge line and then changing it to residential, that's one way to do it. But if you do a lot of residential deliveries, you can set up a special service level to have it automatically rate using that residential charge. That, again, is under service levels here. And I believe I have one set up here. So instead of saying add a delivery and rate it using air freight rate, I say have a delivery or rate it using residentials. Now every time I choose this service level, it's going to pop in a delivery for me, but it's going to automatically rate it using the residential deliveries. So you can do a lot with service levels. You can make your own custom service levels. You can make service levels that are only going to be available for certain customers. You can even go further as far as setting up rate rules. So you say every time I put in a residential delivery, add a residential surcharge or add an inside surcharge. You can make rules that will automatically add surcharges based on the service types and service levels that you put in. We can give you all this information on rating and how to set up and configure rates. Just want to show you that real fast here. All right. So the next thing that we want to touch on real quick is recurring shipments. This is a very underutilized system that we have in the Crown Freight Manager system here. So not a lot of customers are using it, but it is really important. It can save you a lot of time. Recurring shipments are under Process and Recurring Shipments. Now I put one in here for you, but essentially what you're going to do is you're going to click on New, select your customer, we'll do a pickup here, select your service level, and then you're going to make the template for your recurring shipment. So let me just make one here, Office X. So I go in, pop in all the information on my recurring shipments. It's default ready is noon to 1700. Okay. Now one of the cool things that you can do with reoccurrings are you can use these for one-offs or odd situations that you do frequently, but they require a lot of configuration on that shipment. So let's say that, there you go, this is good. This needs to be a quoted rate, so it can't resolve this location. What I can do is go in and I can, oh, that's why I can't, it's not a delivery. Swap addresses. Well, regardless, let's say that I want to make this a quoted rate, a no-calc rate here. I can go in, I can edit this charge line, and I can set it to be, whatever I want. I can also add in any additional accessorial charges, so let's say liftgate is going to be required for this. And then when I save it, I can choose my schedule. So I can say, well, this is going to be a weekly move, and we do it every day or every Friday. Now when I exit that out, if I want to take a look at this again, if I edit it, all of those charges are static in there. So those, my no-calc, my quoted charge, stays in there. So I can set up a very particular type of move that I do infrequently, but enough that I want it to be a recurring. And when it's time to process that, your user just has to go in, click on the button, say process shipments. So they don't have to remember that, oh, this is a pickup for this location and we always charge them just $600 or whatever it is. You can just have these templates set up so they can go and they can grab that recurring job and just hit one button and process it in. You can set up categories as well. So you can make a category for a specific customer and go in and say, all right, I'm doing all my Payless for today, and grab all the shipments in that category and pop them in. And any configuration that you've set up in there, any special charges or accessorials or whatever you want, are you going to retain in that template and just go in automatically. So you don't have to have that person who knows the ins and outs of those specific jobs process them. You can just have anyone hit that button. So recurring shipments are going to pop up on the date that you've selected. So we're looking at Friday right now. So of course we're seeing our 2 recurring shipments that are scheduled for Friday. So I've seen customers with 300, 400 recurring shipments entered in, and they'll just have them pop up on whatever scheduled date it would be. They'll select them all, hit process shipments, and it's going to populate their dispatch board with all of those jobs. Again, you can use those categories. So sometimes customers will have categories set up by users. So, Peter shipments, Andy shipments, or whatever they are, and then just have the users responsible for those accounts processing in those reoccurrings. So once I select them here, I can either do a select all, or I can do individually, and I hit process. It's going to pop it into my system here. It's going to put it right on my dispatch board. Now, if there's an error, if there's a problem, or let's say there's a duplicate house spell or something it finds, or if there's some issue, it's going to pop up and tell you that. So recurring shipments are a very, very powerful tool. I definitely recommend that everybody who has recurring stops or daily stops, they utilize that. Again, that's under process and then recurring shipments. All right. Now, one of the last things that we want to talk about today on this webinar are going to be manifests. So we know that there are a couple different ways that you can do driver manifests. You can grab your shipments, grab my deliveries, right-click, assign my driver, and then once we do that, it's going to say, do you want to mark those jobs out for delivery? We'll say yes. If you have the mobile data product, it's going to say, do you want to send these jobs to the mobile data unit? We'll say yes. Ben's phone is going to ring. These jobs are going to get marked as OFD, and they're going to be available for me to print on the manifest. So again, I keep touching on the dispatch boards, but if I'm sorting out now by status, you can see those jobs are now marked out for delivery. All right. So as long as the driver is assigned and the shipment is marked out for delivery, it's going to show on your driver manifest. So if I click on the printer icon again, to my delivery manifest, we're going to choose Ben, hit run report. Hopefully, there we go. It's going to show all of my shipments for him. In the case of pickups, you have to have a driver assigned and it has to be marked dispatched. So driver and OFD for delivery is driver and dispatch, obviously from pickups. But if we take a look at our dispatch action here and then go to driver manifest, there's also the option to manually build your manifest. So the advantage to running off of a report is it's fast. You just assign the driver, OFD it, hit your report, boom, it's done. It's going to sort everything out by house fill. So the daily run that the guy does and he knows how to route it, he doesn't need you to route it, then yes, you can just run that report, give him the piece of paper and send it to his phone and he's going. But if you want to route your manifest, you would do the dispatch action and the driver manifest option. And then what you can do is you can take the shipments and you can drag them over in whatever order you want and build the manifest for the customer. I'm sorry, for the driver. You can build the manifest for the driver, eventually for the customer. And I can reorder them, set them in whatever order I like here. And I can choose my driver, say Charlie Chan, and if I hit create manifest, it will allow me to print out that manifest. You also have the option to send it right to the driver's MDU. Now, this is a very useful tool if you are pre-manifesting. So one of the problems that I'm sure we've all run into here is you have your late night operations people building the manifest for the drivers the next morning. And they'll make the manifest and it'll pop up and say, do you want to mark these out for delivery? They'll say yes. And then you have an EDI message that goes and updates all the forwarders and says that your freight's out for delivery at midnight, which isn't the case. If you use a manual manifesting system, then you have the option here to leave the status as is. So you can still print out these manifests and get them set up for your drivers, but not necessarily mark them out for delivery, and then you can just do that afterwards. So yes, you can do that when doing the manifest reporting, but we find that this option works best for customers who are doing the pre-manifest.
Another example was Cal Sierra. They would leave the shipment status as is because sometimes the driver cannot fit all the shipments in the truck. So they would bring back the manifest and actually mark the shipments that actually fit in the truck.
There you go. Yep. So leave as is, we'll leave that status, still get the driver's manifest, mark out, we'll obviously mark out here. So you have the option to make a manifest number if you wanted. And what we'll do is hit manifest, and then it's going to look pretty similar here. So there's my manifest. Now once you've done that, if you want to add additional shipments to the manifest, you can say view manifest. There's Charlie Chan, his manifest number is 38. If I want to take an additional job, so in this scenario I can fit more on the truck or whatever it is, I can right click on any of these shipments and say add to existing manifest. Pop in 38. It's going to go on there. And now he's going to have that shipment on his addition or his existing manifest. This is also nice using this manual manifesting system because you can go back and reference manifests after the fact. When you're doing it as a report, it's just referencing the data that you have in the system at that time. What jobs are OFD'd for this driver right now? And so the report can vary. I guess if you mark more shipments out for delivery or add or remove them from the driver, there can be fluctuation in it. But with using the manual manifesting system, you kind of have a log of all of your drivers' manifests in here. So this is a very useful tool. Again, that is dispatch action and driver manifests. More and more we're seeing customers leaning towards using this exclusively rather than just doing the report, especially now with how everything you want to have it routed to be most fuel efficient and whatnot. All right, the last thing that we can touch on here is how to use routes. Now this is a bit of a company change, and it requires a setup, and it requires some work through to do this. But we do have routes in the system, not to be confused with routing that we used for your carriers here. But you can set up zip codes to link directly to routes. And then instead of dispatching drivers to shipments, you dispatch drivers to routes. So to give you an example here, if I go into my city zip, and that's at 14221, it's my zip code, I have the option in here to assign zone info, and I can set my route on this. So I can make Route 1, Route 1A, Route 2, Route 2A, whatever routes I want, and get them set up in my system under the list maintenance option. We can show you that. I have my routes in here. This is incidentally where you can also put in any other list items that you have in here. So if you have, service types, you can add them and whatnot. Well, once that's done, I can go and I can do a bulk search, let's say for Buffalo, New York. I can grab multiple shipments, or I'm sorry, multiple city zips here. I can right-click, and then I can assign them all to a set route. Once that's done, when these jobs are first entered in, or they come in through EDI or what have you, that zip code is going to trigger the route field here, and it's going to automatically set them up on the routes to which their zip codes are assigned. Then all you need to do is you would dispatch your drivers out to routes. So you say, Joe is doing Route 1 today. And it's tough to visualize because I don't have any routes set up right now. I apologize for that. But if you go to dispatch action and then update drivers, you see a list of routes here. And then all you do is just assign the driver to that route. And then all of the shipments that were preset on that route based on their zip code would then have that driver assigned to it. So it's a really fast way to assign drivers to bulk groups of shipments rather than picking them out of your dispatch grid like this and right-clicking and doing it. It will also allow you to clear the drivers off. So if I say that my driver is no longer going to be able to do that route, I can take them off, I can put somebody else on, and you can swap them on or off pretty easily. So clear drivers would let me take the driver off of that route. So if you have questions about setting up your areas to routes, or if you have, we can export out your city zip list for you and give it to you, and you can kind of bulk fill in some of those routes, and then we can re-import it. We can assist you with that, but using routes instead of assigning drivers individually to shipments will save you a lot of time. This is also where if you have our Crown Maps product that comes in, you can do some of your assignments right on that Crown Maps, and you can get a visual for which drivers you need to assign to which shipments. Let's see. Oh, one other thing is a new feature that we just put in now. If we go back to manual manifesting, go to dispatch action, and then driver manifest, is we will now allow you to manifest transfers. So you can do just straight transfers, and those can also be sent to the MDU units. So that really enhances it to where if you are using, let's say, pickup and transfer instead of pickup and then an outbound airport sweep, you can now send those transfers. You can put them in a manual manifest, and you can send them out to the mobile data. So that was a hot item that is now in the system, and everyone can utilize that. So thank you for joining this webinar. If you have any questions about anything that you've seen here or want to know more about setting up the boards, color profiles, reports, reoccurring shipments, or manifesting, please give us a call. Everyone has our number, but we are 716-651-0977, or email us at crownsupport@crowndatasystems.com. Again, thank you for coming, and please, we appreciate any feedback that you can give us on it.